What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS live stream for the US Open. We got a major championship tomorrow. I'm probably not going to sleep much tonight with all the excitement. We're going to cover everything you guys need to know for this week, DFS wise. We'll talk about the weather, my player pool, of course, your live questions as per usual. So gonna hop right on into it. We got a lot to talk about here. So let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll start with a look at the weather. So let's take a look at the forecast here for Thursday, also for Friday. Try and see if there's going to be a little bit of a split, which I'm expecting there to be a very slight weather advantage. Early here on Thursday, they'll be teeing off right around like 7, I believe 6:45 a.m. is the first tee times. It's going to be lower winds. You have single digits in terms of the sustained winds, 8 to 10 miles an hour. And then in the afternoon, upwards of 15 to 17 miles an hour. Whereas on Friday, it's a little bit more flat. In fact, maybe even slightly worse conditions towards the morning wave. That means the players that are teeing off in the afternoon on Thursday, morning on Friday, might be a little bit more prone to getting into the wind, right? You can see there's 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts that morning as opposed to 20 towards the afternoon. And then on the first day, like I said, it's more of the difference between the sustained winds in the morning and then the afternoon. So I expect there to be a slight advantage to playing in the AM PM wave, but I don't expect it to be drastic. If I had to put a number on it, try to quantify it, probably right around a half a stroke difference. It's not like it's 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts for the entire PM AM wave, or vice versa, where you'd be talking about a major change between the two waves, but enough to perhaps go out there, make a few tiebreakers. If you're, having a hard time deciding between two of the guys in the 7K range, if one's playing in the morning afternoon wave, one's playing in the PM AM wave, maybe use that to make that sort of distinction. So that's it for weather. Let's go ahead and hop into the player pool. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. I can see there's quite a few of you down in chat already. So first off, what's going on? We got David down there who is ready for the carnage this weekend. I could not agree more. Nick, who asked my favorite range to get an advantage. For me, it's up top. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about these studs. There's a lot of guys in that 7K range that I think are worthy chalk. They're mispriced because the pricing came out before last week's event. Guys like a Davis Riley, Harold Varner III, for example, that had really solid weeks, I'm going to have a really hard time staying away from. So in the 7K range, I'm kind of eating some of that chalk. Whereas up top, there's a few, let's say, unique plays that I'm getting to, like a Colin Morikawa. So I have to say up top, that 9, 10K range is where I'm making a lot of my distinctions. You have Gary Kerr down in chat. What's going on? It's great to see you finally down here in the live stream. It's great to have you guys around. It's major championship week. We've got a lot to talk about. So let's go ahead and hop into it. So on the top of the board, this is my favorite range because there's guys that are just criminally underowned. I mean, Scotty Scheffler, I have at 11.7% right now, which is just probably right around half of where it should be. I mean, he should be probably the highest owned play on the slate. I understand the price tag is there. He's over $11,000. But his track record this year is bar none. And this golf course, specifically, the course fit here is nearly ideal. The only real red flag that you can bring up about a Scotty Scheffler would be the miscut at Southern Hills, which is a comp course for me. It's something that I am using in my modeling. It's the one detractor from an otherwise perfect track record. I mean, just gaining across the board, has the putting splits on POA that we're looking for. Now, one thing I did get a little bit of clarity on today is the POA surfaces, and usually a lot of golf courses in the Northeast will be a bent grass, right? Bent grass is, I should say, POA is a form of bent grass. It's a more distinct version of bent grass, but these are true POA surfaces. So I was able to get confirmation on that today. They aren't like a lot of the other courses in the area that are more of a hybrid between bent grass and POA. These are true POA surfaces, which is a little bit surprising to me. I'd expect them to play a little bit different than what we see on the California side that are a little bit firmer and faster, that really get bumpy in the afternoon. You're dealing with the Country Club, one of the more, I don't want to say pristine courses. I mean, obviously Augusta National. There's a few others that absolutely blow it away, but they're still going to run pure as ever living hell. I mean, they're taking perfect care of these greens. They've been getting this golf course ready for 6 months at this point for this event. I don't expect them to be bumpy like we'd see at a Pebble Beach or at a Torrey Pines, which those are municipal golf courses that are getting a ton of traffic all year. So the reason why they're not as pristine, they're not as pure as what we'd see at a TPC golf course that has POA in its greens, or what I expect to see this week at the Country Club, is they don't have all that traffic, right? There's not been thousands and thousands of rounds played at the country club this year. So I am going to treat them as more of a like bentgrass / POA mix because I expect them to run purely. A lot of these quote unquote pure POA surfaces that we have the stats here for are for those West Coast events where it is truly that like bumpy POA that you'll see on the West Coast at a Pebble Beach, at a Torrey Pines, for example. I don't know if we want to use those splits. So it's something that I've kind of came back around on. But the one thing about Scotty Scheffler is that that bent POA mix is where all 4 of his wins were this year. So if anything, that makes it even better for somebody like a Scotty Scheffler. It takes away from guys like a Colin Morikawa. So there's a few guys we're going to have to talk about where their baselines need to be adjusted a little bit. But using that bent POA mix is, I think, what you need to be doing this week, because the greens that you saw at a TPC Sawgrass, what you saw at the Valspar Championship, Florida Swing, Honda Classic, all those golf courses with that bent POA mix, that's the exact type of surface that I'm expecting this week. Those are the putting stats you want to look at. So, and again, there was like a 8 to 10 event stretch this year where we were playing on these exact type of greens. So it's not like we have to look very hard to find these putting stats. Every single player in this field that's of note is going to have a large sample size on these type of greens. So it's something that I've adjusted in my modeling, and it's taken me off of a few players, and it's also put me onto a few others. So we'll talk about a few of those as we go through the player poll. Somebody I'm not playing is going to be JT. It doesn't feel great, but it's a victim of opportunity cost. You can't play everybody up top. For me, it's going to be Scotty Scheffler. I'm going to play a ton of Jon Rahm, and I'm going to go down to Colin Morikawa. So we'll talk about Morikawa, but my guys up top, top end of the 10K range, are going to be Rahm and Scheffler. Both of them elite level off the tee players, more than enough power to get out of this gnarly rough. And they got the around the green play I'm looking for too. I mean, most notably Rahm, who has turned it around in a big way with his short game. That's the Jon Rahm that we need to take home a U.S. Open. It's the type of Jon Rahm that we had last year at Torrey Pines, where he ended up taking home his first U.S. Open. So I like him there at 10,800. It was a core pick going into the week, and he's only 11.7% owned, right? So the same exact number as we have Scotty Scheffler at. Certainly somebody I'm willing to fire up, particularly if combined, they're just a little bit higher owned combined than somebody like a Rory McIlroy. If I was going to get leverage, or at least the same type of leverage on a Rory, and I have to play 45% of them, instead, I can take those 45% of lineups and play Jon Rahm and Scotty Scheffler. To me, it's a very straightforward decision. In fact, I had somebody today like, oh, you're going to fade Rory McIlroy. Let's see how that goes for you. I would 99 out of 100 times rather have Scotty Scheffler and Jon Rahm than Rory McIlroy. It's a straightforward decision. If you like Rory McIlroy that much that you'd play him over 2 of the top 3 players in the world, you're lying to yourself. You're full of shit. You don't understand DFS, because that's how easy of a decision it is. That's the comment I gave that guy. It's just like, you're in for a rude awakening, right? Unless Rory goes out there and wins this event, you're not going to want to make that decision. Right? If you think Rory wins this week, right, you're somebody who bet him outright, go ahead and play him this week, right? You can play him as chalk. But at least for me, the process is relatively simple. I'd much rather play 2 guys up top that I think actually model out better than a Rory McIlroy than one single guy that's going to be super chalky, right? So that's one of the pivots I'm making up top. So I know Nick earlier asked, what range I expect to be, the most strategic, or where you can find an advantage for this week. That's why I think it's the 10K range, because there's a few guys that you can avoid or pivot to that can make yourself extremely unique. You can play all the chalk you want in the 8 and 7K range. So not going to be playing Rory McIlroy. Cam Smith, I don't have all that much. I don't trust his off the tee play, right? He's somebody who's going to miss plenty of fairways. He's not a big bulky guy that's going to be hacking it out of the rough. So I worry about that for Cam Smith at 10,200. Last week, of course, shot 6 over par in the first round, so that wasn't ideal. So I'm not going to force him into the player pool. I don't hate him as a play. If you were going to take a shot on somebody other than Colin Morikawa, let's say we're going to talk about him here in a second. Let's say you're not really digging the Colin Morikawa play. Maybe go to Cam Smith, right? He'd be a good play to go to. Similar ownership level, similar price tag as well, and a similar upside, I would argue as well. Let's talk about Colin. Let's talk about why I'm getting to him. So first off, the ball striking has been there. And he's been quoted this week as saying that his ball striking, isn't ideal because he's hitting a right to left shot. Well, his right to left shot is gaining him nearly a stroke per round with his approach play. And if he's going to get more and more used to it over time, let people lie to themselves that he hasn't been hitting the ball well. Gaining a stroke on approach is elite level stuff. That's stuff that Colin Morikawa doesn't even do that often on the PGA Tour. And I've heard multiple big name DFS channels this week go, Colin Morikawa's not hitting the ball well. Well, the stats say otherwise, and they say quite emphatically otherwise. And even over the last 50 measured rounds, you give him a large enough sample size, he's still gaining over 3/4 of a stroke per round on approach and over half a stroke off the tee. How is that not good? Like, I would be happy with that with literally anyone in the world at this point, right? The putter hasn't been there. So for Colin Morikawa, it's a straightforward equation, right? If he goes and finds the putter this week, could perhaps win this golf tournament. Even if he doesn't, it's probably a top 10, top 15 finish, given his accuracy off the tee. Exactly what we're looking for around this venue. His approach play, hitting these small tiered greens, not going to be a problem for Colin. He proved that at the Open Championship. Royal St. George's had a similar type of setup to what we're going to see this week. I think he's a higher upside play than people are giving him credit for, and he's single digit owned. I mean, literally you take 15% of Colin Morikawa, you have more than enough leverage to the field, and he has, I'd argue, right around like 8-9% win equity, right? And if he hits that win equity, you're going to need him in your lineups. He's proven it time and time again that he likes these major championships. When conditions get tough, his game is suited for those conditions, and particularly when there's an emphasis on hitting fairways. TPC Harding Park, where he won his PGA championship, similar golf course. It was all about hitting fairways there, hitting small greens, and they weren't the most undulated greens. They were relatively small. They were running fast, kind of similar to what we have this week. So perhaps there's something there, the comp to TPC Harding Park, something that I'm definitely hunkering down on. We'll catch up on questions down in chat. Looks like there's a few of them. Chris Palmer says, any concern for Lowry since he's paired with Mickelson? No, not for me. I think a lot of people overanalyze a bit when they're looking at the pairings. He's going to have a few more eyes on him, but he's used to that. He's an elite level player. He's been on PGA Tour Live the last 2-3 months with guys like a Dustin Johnson, Jordan Spieth in groups. It's going to be a little bit more of a circus, but not anything I'm holding against him too much. Jin Yang says, who's your favorite this week? It'd have to be Jon Rahm. Number 2 would be Scotty Scheffler, though. I bet both of those guys up top. I'm extremely bullish on both of their chances for winning this week. Gary Kerr says, beam me up, Scotty. Yeah, I like that Star Trek reference for anybody out there. Robert Babb says, what's up, Luke? How much money are we winning this week? Hopefully the $100,000. I'm in the $5 GPP 150 max contest, and I'm in all the large single entries. So 33, the $12, the $5. I entered the big 2 contests for both of those price points. I should say all 3 of those price points, and a few other community picks. And by the way, guys, we do have a free, not a free contest, a paid contest this week that if anybody who's in that, by the way, so a Robert, if you want to do it, if Rage, if you're watching this, you want to go ahead and put the link down in chat. We do have a contest this week for $1 where it's going to be everyone takes all. So it's $30, right? All $30 are going to go to first. Just a community contest, right? And what we're going to do is the winner of that contest is going to get a shout out on next week's stream. So if anybody has that link, anybody that I know is in the contest already wants to go ahead and throw that down in chat, that would be super clutch. If not, I will do it by the end of the stream. So make sure you join that if you want to get in on the community play. Just, a little fun contest, just $1 entry, nothing crazy. And you definitely get the bragging rights if you win. Jin Yang says, tell me a good one and I'll put 10,000 on them. Oh, I'm not going to do that for you, bro. If you're going to put 10 grand on someone, you do it yourself. I cannot support that, unfortunately. I'm not going to do that for you. Planet Warrior says, hey, Luke, who are your best value picks for top 10s and top 20s? When we get to the 7K range, I'll talk about a few of them that I already bet for top 20. So that'll probably be a better time to touch on that. But there's 4 bets I've already fired for top 20, and all of them are in the 7K range. In fact, I actually put a couple top 40 bets on a few of the amateurs in the field. We'll talk about them as well. They're in the 6K range. Kesh says, when you get to the range, what is your take on Lodewickus Theodorus? Oh boy, we're gonna get the Lodewickus. Don't you worry. And actually, let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I'm gonna do something real quick. So when we get to Lodewickus, people know who I'm talking about. We're good. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. Had to edit something on the good old spreadsheet for you guys. All right, there we go. Let's get back into the questions, though. We got Joshua says, thoughts on Adam Hadwin. I like him. I'll be playing him this week. I think because he was a late ad, people aren't thinking about him. I mean, he wasn't even in my spreadsheet this week until today because he was a late ad on Monday. when I'm putting together my projections, doing all my modeling and whatnot, it was without Adam Hadwin, right? He wasn't in the DraftKings pricing at that point. So I think he's going to be lower owned than he should be. It's a silly reason to be low owned, but I truly think that may actually have an impact. So I'm going to have some Adam Hadwin this week. Gary says, sounds like a Harry Potter character. Yeah, you guys will laugh when you know who it is. Jin says, Patrick Rogers and Corey Connors. What do you think about those two players? I do think they're both make the cut. They're both solid ball strikers. I think Patrick Rogers is certainly a great sleeper because he loves himself some POA. If you look at the bent POA mix, so if you're using those stats rather than the POA stats, he is better than his baseline there too. So I like his fact. I like the putting stats. I also like the recent form. He's put up a few solid finishes, a few top 25s of late. Last week was in contention for a little bit. So I like seeing that. And Planet says, how you feeling about Riley? I like Riley. He'll be in the player pool. We'll certainly talk him up. And Justin Sports says, do we think a live guy is winning? I do not think a live guy is winning. I think if one wins, it's going to be Dustin Johnson. I think he'd be the clear choice for that. But if there's a live guy I want to get into contention, I want to see Phil Mickelson in contention more than anything in the world. It would be the best storyline in human history for this US Open. Of course, you have the whole live aspect, which I would love to see on national TV. But more than that, he would have a chance to finish the career Grand Slam. I mean, it would just be all worlds colliding at once. So I don't think a live guy wins, to be honest with you. But it'd be a heck of a storyline, to be honest with you. Alrighty, let's continue with our player pool though. So we talked about Colin Morikawa, Victor Hovland. Oh boy, I think he's gonna run into some trouble this week. There was a report about an hour and a half ago that came out that he duffed 3 straight chips into the rough on a practice hole today and gave up on trying to get the ball into the green, picked it up and threw it on the green. That might tell you everything you need to know about him this week. He can ball strike the crap out of it, but at some point this week, it's going to be either a round or maybe even 2 rounds for him where he just hemorrhages strokes to the field around the green. It was round 4 at the Arnold Palmer. I was following him around there. He, of course, had a chokehold on that golf tournament through the first 3 rounds and then threw it away with the fact that he was so bad around the green that last round. And I can tell you from seeing it in person, I mean, he was leaving chip shots like 30, 40 feet short. I mean, like amateur level stuff. That's what pressure does to you. And if that was happening at the API, I cannot imagine Victor in contention at a major. I mean, we haven't even seen it yet. I mean, that's how bad the skill set fit is at pretty much every major championship field. He never finds himself in contention at majors to begin with, but I can't even imagine how bad it'll look on a Sunday if he finds himself in contention. I mean, and I like the guy. He's won me a GPP before. So like, people always like make it out like I hate Victor Hovland. I don't. I love the kid. He's like one of the best characters on the PGA Tour, but I don't like him at major championships. I've been super adamant about that. And this week, I think it's going to be really ugly. I think I think he's going to have one of those rounds towards the upper 70s, like 77, 78, and could even potentially be after he's in contention. He might even get himself into it. Xander Schauffele, let's talk about him. So actually, let's talk about Jordan Spieth first, because the only reason Xander is in my pool is because of Jordan Spieth's illness. He's somebody who has a stomach illness, stomach bug of sorts that he, I believe, picked up on Monday. He wasn't feeling solid at the end of his day on Monday. Tuesday, he played through it on the practice range. But today, it was so bad that he had to leave his practice round early. Actually, I don't even think he teed off on his practice round. He was still on the range and just went home. He told his agent a few hours ago through Todd Lewis that he is going to play tomorrow, but that he has the stomach illness, blah, 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 needs to rest up, get some fluids in him, et cetera, et cetera. And at first, I was like, okay, well, that sucks, right? We can't play Jordan Spieth this week, except when I looked at the last time this happened. And we don't have to look that far back. Jordan Spieth had a similar issue the week before Pebble Beach, and now he had a little bit more time to recover. We knew about the illness the week before at the Farmers Insurance Open. He was hospitalized actually on Thursday night. If you guys remember that, he went to the hospital, got diagnosed with some sort of colitis, and the next day went out and played and shot 78. So fact of the matter is, we do have to worry about Jordan Spieth because it's in close proximity, just like it was at the Farmers. At first, I was like, oh, as soon as it happened, he went out and finished second at the Pebble. But that was the week afterwards. So the more and more I look into it, the more and more concerned I am about Jordan Spieth, and the more and more likely he doesn't even make my player pool. And I hate to say that. I love the pick this week. I really, if he was 100% this week, I was going to have like 45% Jordan Spieth. I was going to go, almost all in on the guy. Just love the course fit, love the recent form, pretty much checking every box I'm looking for. But this illness, I mean, he shot 78 the day after this happened last time. And it's that same type of proximity. It came up either on Monday night or Tuesday morning. So he's probably either going to be like 7% owned in my pool or maybe zero. So I haven't really decided what to do with him yet. You can see I have lowered exposure here. That's at the very least. There's a good chance that he actually finds himself out of my player pool. So as a result, a lot of that ownership is going to Xander Schauffele. I like the course fit this week. The only reason he wasn't down as a core play was because I liked Jordan Spieth as much as I did, but accurate off the tee when at Shinnecock Hills, which this golf course I'm expecting to play extremely similar to what we saw at Shinnecock Hills. He finished in third place to Brooks Koepka. Second place was Tommy Fleetwood there. Winning score was over par. I think we might see something similar this week, or at least in the low single digits in certain terms of winner, like 3-4 under par. Those are the type of events I like Xander at because he makes a ton of pars. He plays boring golf. He hits fairways. He hits greens. Unfortunately, the putter can be a little bit streaky for him from time to time. So I like myself some Xander, especially if I'm going to have 0% of Jordan Spieth. Got to make a pivot at some point. I like DJ. I talked about him early in the week as a sleeper. He was striping it last week, particularly with his irons. The wedges were dialed in, even those long irons. Was hitting plenty of greens. Just couldn't putt for his life. And I don't know. He's played well at Oakmont before. He likes himself fast, undulating greens, i.e. look at the Masters where he won. Absolutely bum rushed that place with his score. Just you could do a similar thing here. If he's ball striking it like he did last week and then finds that magic putter, you're going to have DJ because he could win this by 5 strokes. Now, granted, he could also miss the cut by 5 strokes. He's a volatile player by nature, but at $9,400, I don't see how you avoid playing just a little bit of him. Right? He's 4.5% owned. You play 7% Dustin Johnson, you're at the very least going to match the field if he comes in higher owned than we expect. More than likely, you're probably going to be right around double the field, right? Or at least a little bit under that if he's 4.5% owned. That's dangerous enough, and that's enough leverage to take down the GPP. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I think I'm going to have 15%. I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive about it. So if he comes in closer to 5-6% owned, I'm still getting some significant leverage there, but not anybody you have to go overboard on to get that leverage. Willie Z is another player that finds himself into the pool because of Jordan Spieth. Xander was down as a no, actually not a no, he was down as a blank. Willie Z was down as a no, but both of them have flipped at this point. I like the course fit for Willie Z at every major. He's got the ball striking we're looking for. He kind of like a Xander is going to completely bore you to death with pars out there. But this week, especially with fantasy scoring, pars are going to be a solid score. I mean, there's going to be a lot of bogeys out there. They're going to play, and this is how I know this is going to be the case. So early in the week, I told you guys 11-12 under par was going to win. And then the next day, I said like 7-8 under par, right? There's more rumblings about the golf courses just being gnarly out there. The reason why I know it's going to be insanely difficult is they're playing hole number 11, at least on, I believe on Friday's the day they're planning to do this, at like 80 yards. They're going to play an 80-yard par 3. If they're comfortable playing a double-digit yard par 3, they know this golf course is going to tear these players apart because that hole specifically, it's shaped like an upside down bowl in the middle of the greens, the high spot, and then just funnels off of that. I think they think that it's going to be like an unhittable green. That's how they're going to put it at like 80 yards. This golf course is going to be gnarly, guys. If they have the confidence to go out there and put a double-digit yard hole out there, they know this place is going to absolutely kill these players. So that's the first rumbling I've got about that. So guys like a Willie Z that are going to hit greens, hit fairways, par you to death, perhaps shoot something like 1 under par this week, that might win this U.S. Open. So I like getting to Willie Z. I like getting to Patrick Cantlay. Boy, this guy's just disappointing in major championships. So if you were going to fade Patrick Cantlay based on that alone, I honestly couldn't blame you. In major championships, if you've been fading Cantlay, you've been printing money. He's been extremely high owned in pretty much every single major championship. And I believe this is the first time we're getting him sub 15%. He's like always about 20-25% owned at these major championships. So I'm going to continue to ride it, right? At some point, he's going to turn it around. He's just too talented of a player, but obviously could burn us. He's done that time and time again. Shane Lowry, he's getting a lot of steam late in the week. I like him at $9,000, just mispriced, right? Somebody who, based on the play we've seen for the last 2-3 months, should be in that $9,500 to maybe even $9,700 range. So you're getting a little bit of price savings there. And in terms of points per dollar, I mean, at least of the guys up top, he's the number one play on the board, right? I have him for 10x value. You have a few other guys that are approaching 10x. They're in the 8K range, which we'll talk about here in a second. But that's natural, right? They're a solid $1,000 less expensive. So getting Shane Lowry, getting a little bit of exposure there, I think is something that a lot of you should at least consider. Joaquin Niemann, I'm fading because of the approach play. He's been sporadic at best, and yet he gets this knack for like he's in this insane stretch of form where he's been hitting the ball well off the tee. I'll give him that, right? The driver's been great of late. The approach play has not been there. In fact, he's one of the more sorry approach players in this range, right? You got Billy Ho is not the best approach player. We get that. Daniel Berger injured is still right around that same range with his stats. But a huge drop off from guys like a Shane Lowry, from a Cantlay, right? It's a solid, third of a stroke difference between them. I'd much rather get to those guys than a Joaquin Niemann, particularly if he's going to be just as highly owned as somebody like a Shane Lowry, or higher owned than guys like a Will Zalatoris or a Patrick Cantlay. So that's the pivot. That's the direction I'm pivoting there at the top of the 8K, bottom of the 9K range. Cameron Young, I like his power off the tee. I expect that to be extremely useful with this gnarly rough. Brooks Koepka, I'm always going to play him at major championships, particularly if he's 5% owned. I mean, just give me 20% Brooks Koepka. I'm going to run with that. The guy has two US Opens, 2 PGA championships to his record. Just the track record speaks for itself at majors. I don't think you have to talk yourself on or off of Brooks. Kind of similar to a DJ, right? You play 8% this week, you're going to have leverage to the field. Might not be significant leverage, but at the same time, at least you have that exposure in case he goes out there and has the week that he could. And I know a lot of people don't want to play him because he hasn't played much, but if there's one guy in the world that we don't have to worry about that with, it's Brooks Koepka. The guy doesn't practice much to begin with, and I'm sure he's still at least played some golf. I mean, the guy plays golf for a living. He's not just going to completely ignore or neglect his game for 3-4 months at a time. And the main indicator that I think he really wants to win this week specifically is he's no longer using his Strixon gear. He's gone to a Taylor M5 driver, which is what he used when he won both of those, well, I should say all 4 of those major championships. He went back to his Scotty Cameron putter, and he's using a Titleist Pro V1X ball now. So he's completely changed the whole Strixon thing. He's just not doing that this week. He gave Strixon the big old middle finger, told them that I'm not playing your gear this week because I actually want to win the US Open. That tells me that he's been practicing. Obviously, if you're going to change your gear, like you can't just go from a Strixon driver and ball overnight. Like you can't make that switch overnight and expect to play well. I'm assuming that he's been practicing, getting used to that gear. And the fact that he even made a change to begin with, to me, is a great sign. Obviously, he's engaged. He wouldn't be changing his gear if he didn't care about this event, right? So I would keep that in your back mind when you think about Brooks this week, because engaged, motivated Brooks Koepka is a scary and dangerous Brooks Koepka. So I'm going to have like 20-25%. He's going to be one of my highest leverage plays on the entire slate. Let's catch up on chat. Planet says, do you think the live guys get heckled? No, I think they get embraced. Phil Mickelson had the largest crowd of anybody at his Tuesday practice round. So yeah, no. And David says, inside info, don't fade Rodgers. Yeah, I'm not fading him. I certainly have him this week. I like his stats on POA. Jack says, beware the injured golfer. I would agree with you, but there's plenty of other counterexamples, right? At the same time, look at Hideki Matsuyama, withdrawn multiple times over the last few months. Daniel Berger withdrawn multiple times over the last few months. And even when they've both played, they've been sorry, right? The last time we've had a quote unquote injured golfer that played well was towards the beginning of 2021. So there's a lot more examples of guys that flame out when they have these injury concerns than guys that end up pulling through. And yeah, my first reaction for the Jordan Spieth thing is I hope that he was lower owned, but the more and more I looked into it, I mean, this thing just came up. And the last time he had this exact same thing happen, he shot a 78 the next day. So we have evidence that it does impact his play. That's why I'm being cautious about it. I mean, I'm the biggest Jordan Spieth fan in the world. You guys know that. Like if I'm concerned about Jordan Spieth this week and the stomach illness, there's probably something to it. I'll leave it at that. David Farber says, Fitz or Lowry? Lowry for me all day. And I see there's 2 questions there with the same thing. Yeah, definitely. I would take both. I think Gary hit the nail on the head there. Take both. They're both great plays for this week, but I would go with Lowry. The recent form is stronger. I think a lot of the reason people want to get to Fitz is the narrative. Obviously, he won the US Am at this exact golf course, but that was a long time ago. That's for sure. Anthony says, BK City grinded hard last week with Ricky. Yeah, I believe it. I mean, yeah, if you're going to make that equipment change, You can't do that shit overnight. I mean, and that M5 driver, I still have one of those M5 drivers. They're money. This it's such a hot face. That club is like infamous. People still keep it at shops, like on clearance racks. They're still like $300 because they're almost like a collector's piece at this point. TaylorMade M5 driver, they got that thing right. I still have one of those myself, actually. Jack says, you like Burns over Answer. Ooh, that's a tough one because I don't like either one of them, Jack, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, I do like Burns over Answer, that's for sure. I don't think it's really close there, though. I think the Answer would be a little bit of a lower owned pivot. But there's a reason why Sam Burns is chalk. He's a solid play this week. I just won't be there myself. Nick says, what do I think about Molinari? I'm not going to be there. I don't know why he's chalky. Like, there's a few sites, I guess, that have talked him up this week and whatnot. I have him at 2.2%. But based on the amount of steam that I've seen behind him, I feel like he's going to come in like 7-8% owned. And I mean, the recent form, he's had a few decent finishes. So I guess this is probably why there's a lot of steam behind him. Let me see. Where is Mr. Molinari? He's $6,900. Let's see. I mean, yeah, it's not even that good, right? It's like made cut 26, which is kind of irrelevant for large field GPPs. Yeah, he's not my favorite play. I'm not against it, though. He's obviously played well in major championships in the past. I just don't think he's that same player anymore, right? He's only shows up from time to time. He kind of has those ceiling performances once every 2 to 3 months. I don't think it's the worst play in history. If he's going to be 7-8% owned, if he's getting that steam I'm expecting him to, just because I've gotten so many questions about him this week, I'm going to avoid it, right? Like if he was 1-2% owned, if I could play 5% and get leverage, I'd be there on Molinari. I just think he's going to be a little bit higher owned. Antonio says, what's up, Luke? Thoughts on the Aussies this week? In general, right, it's a hard golf course. You got all that rough in play. So Aussies, they do have a good skill set for it, right? So Adam Scott, Cameron Smith, for example, that's a reason why they have some of the best around the green stats in the world. So I think you could target some Aussies, right? So I'm no homer. I'm not from Australia, but for anybody out there that is, hey, maybe take a few of your hometown guys because it makes sense from a skill set perspective, right? Hard golf courses, Royal Melbourne, Augusta National gets that knack as well. When you have to use that creativity, it's right up their alley. And I guess it's just because of the design over there. All of their golf courses tend to be a little bit on the difficult side, but I couldn't tell you outside of that. It's a trend that is certainly notable. It gets talked about quite a bit as well. You have Cam said thoughts on Harmon. So I like Brian Harmon this week. He hits the ball straight. He's going to hit plenty of fairways for us. He's a gainer with his shots gained approach. So not anybody I'm investing in like significantly, right? It's going to be like a 7 to 10%er for me this week, but I'm mixing him in. I like him. Sam says not feeling Hideki just because you like the guys around him. Yeah, spot on. So I don't have anything bad to say about Hideki. The skill set makes perfect sense. Straight off the tee, has the iron play we're looking for. Pretty damn solid around the green as well. The recent form's a little bit shaky, so that's kind of what's making me hesitant about it. I mean, the DQ, right? We can throw that aside. But before the DQ, he was like +4. So he wasn't really playing good golf at the Memorial. So who knows if he would have made the cut. 60th at the PGA. He did have the solid finish at the Byron Nelson. It's just, yeah, like you said, there's guys around him I like a little bit more. So if you wanted to pivot off of Willie Z and take Hideki, I think that'd be a more than reasonable enough play. I won't be doing that myself, but yeah, like I said, I could definitely see that. That's for sure. We got Jack who says, yeah, they streaky for sure. Planet says the top Swede. What do we got? Norn in the field and then a bunch of the amateurs. Norn. You go with Alex Norn. That's who I'll take there. And Nick says Homa or Fleetwood. That's going to be Homa for me, but that's close. I really like Fleetwood this week because I'm using Shinnecock as such a strong comp. Obviously, with him finishing in second, having that amazing Sunday performance, he's getting a few looks for me this week. But yeah, I like Max Homa a little bit more. There's a reason why he's a core pick for me. I think he'll be a lot more popular though, right? So we got only a 3% difference between the two players, I suppose. In reality, though, I would expect him maybe like 5-6% owned higher. There's been quite a bit of steam behind Max Homa this week, not just from myself. All right, let's go through the rest of the 8K range. And this is an important range to talk about. There's going to be a lot of chalk here. You can see 20% on Sam Burns, 18% Tony Finau, almost 16% on Max Homa. And even a guy like Daniel Berger, he's getting 8% now. It was closer to 3% early in the week. A lot of people are going to take a 10K guy up top, and then try and take 2, maybe even 3 of the guys here in the bottom of the 8K range. Sam Burns is going to be extremely popular. I have him at 20.5%. Might even come higher than that. Tony Finau, same thing, but I'm going to play Tony Finau. And here's the main difference between Tony Finau and Sam Burns. Historically, Tony Finau plays well at major championships. Historically, and I say historically for Sam Burns because it hasn't been that many starts, plays poorly at major championships, right? I should say, I guess, I mean, what did he finish at the PGA? 20th, right? So it's just, I think that's his best performance at a major championship, at least off my memory bank that Sam Burns has had in his career. I'd much rather go Tony Finau's direction, right? So I don't think you should play both of them. I don't think that Sam Burns and Tony Finau are must plays. I think they're solid plays, right? There's a reason why they're projecting for 10.2x value when it comes to their points per dollar, but there's also, that's why they're 20% owned, right? So if you're going to take 40% Sam Burns and 40% Tony Finau, like you would have to get leverage on both of them, you can't play anyone else in this range, right? You're not going to be able to get to a Daniel Berger, a Matt Fitzpatrick. You're not going to be able to take Brooks Koepka, or even guys like a Max Homa and Terrell Hatton that I really like this week. First off, Homa is played extremely well at difficult tracks, particularly difficult tracks with gnarly rough. And Terrell Hatton has made a living at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, a comp course that I'm using this week as well. So I have to get off of one of these guys to add in these 2-3 extra guys that I like in this range. So that's why I think it's such an important range to hunker down on. You have to make the right decision in this range. If Sam Burns ends up finishing top 5, not going to go well for me this week. I can tell you from experience, that guy for me was Tony Finau last week. I faded Tony Finau and he finished in second place. And even though I had a nearly perfect player pool, and I mean literally nearly perfect, of the top 10, I had 9 of the top 10 players in my pool and they were significantly leveraged in my player pool, I ended up losing money last week in my large field GBP, right? That's the type of thing that can happen if you get this wrong. So that's why I say that this 8K range, maybe the 10K, 9, 10K range is the most important range. Obviously, as you go down the board, it's going to get less and less and more important. But this 8K range is even more important this week because of how chalky some of these players are. So, if you think Sam Burns is going to play well this week, don't avoid him, right? Play him by all means. But I don't know if you can realistically play Sam Burns and Tony Finau, get the leverage that you're looking for, and get exposure to the rest of this range, right? If you're going to play both of them, you can maybe play both of them and then Daniel Berger, and that's it. Or maybe both of them and then Brooks Koepka, and then that's it. It's a huge level of opportunity cost, right? As opposed to being able to take, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys in that range. You'd have to take 3, right? You're taking half as many players. That's how confident you're going to have to be about somebody like a Sam Burns and a Tony Finau. So that's what we'll do for the 8K range. We'll catch up on chat before we talk about the 7K guys. What we got down here? We got David who says Raman Riley or Xander in Homa. Raman Riley for me. I'd rather go with the more aggressive play there. The guy in the 10K range, guy down there in the 7s. I like Xander this week. I like Max Homa. You're going to see a little, even though Riley is going to be chalky, right? He's going to be right around the same percentage owned as somebody like a Max Homa. I would imagine the combination of Riley and Rahm is lower owned than the combination of Xander and Homa, just due to the pricing. People are a little bit more comfortable taking a balanced approach, particularly in weeks like this with the pricing, where the 6K range is dog shit this week. So I'd go with the first one, the more aggressive of those two builds. Ray Flores says thoughts on Herbie. I love Herbert this week. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about him. He's got the around the green play that I'm looking for at a major championship venue. Antonio says, are you off Hostler? He's dirt cheap and a great putter. I am not off Hostler. He's in my player pool, so I'm there with you. He also likes himself some Poa Nua greens. So if we get pure Poa greens, which again, we touched on this at the beginning, I guess I'll reiterate it right now. We don't know about the greens. They're either pure Poa, which I had a few sources tell me today that they looked like they were pure Poa, but I also had a few sources tell me today that like every set of greens in the Northeast has bent grass influence to them. So I'm taking a look at it at bent stats and Poa stats. I'm taking a look at both of them, trying to combine them together. And he's solid on both surfaces, Antonio. So kind of similar to a Scotty Scheffler. The bent Poa hybrid is a favorable surface for him. Same thing with Poa. I like him even more for that reason. Let's see. We got a Planet who says, great stuff. How are you feeling about Ryan Fox? I like Ryan Fox. Long player off the tee. Solid player on the European Tour, DP World Tour at this point, which might become Live Golf at some point, which is another end of that saga that's just crazy. But I like him this week. He's a high upside play. He's super cheap down there in the 6K range. So yeah, I'll have him in my pool. You have Chris who says, Burns and Finau okay together in cash? Yes, they are. In cash, I think you might even want to take like 4 guys from the 8K range. You could just completely scattershot the 8K range in cash. and make a really solid lineup. Maybe take somebody in that 9K range that you really like and cap off your lineup that way. David says, Willie Z or Cantlay? It's going to be Cantlay for me. Jack says, anybody you think is going to come out hot? Ooh, that's a tough question. That's like the $1 million question for first round leader. I'd go with volatile players, right? So if you bring up your stat database du jour, the one that you enjoy the most, sort it by birdie or better percentage, and scatter shot top for first round leaders. If I had to take a gander, somebody from the morning wave, right, likely to go out there, have some success. I know John Rahm's playing in the morning. Maybe he goes out there, starts, 2-3 under par early. That could very well be the early lead. Who else is playing early? Off memory, I can't even remember who's playing early. It's not that big of an advantage this week, but John Rahm, he would be my pick for that. I actually added him to my first round leader ballot. So I just scattershotted a lot of guys down low in that 70 to 100 plus to 1 range. When it came to first round leader, a lot of the volatile players, for example, like a Davis Riley, a little bit further down, like a Mark Leishman, EVR, those type of players that are extremely aggressive. If you can find those high birdie or better percentage players playing in the morning, they're the prime candidates to go out there and get an early lead, something like 2 to 3 under par early. So that's the direction I'd be going there, Jack. Justin says, did you ever hear from that guy that talked about the different POA surfaces? I never heard from him, but yeah, for sure. Like at the beginning when I was mentioning the greens, from what I understand, they're a pure POA. Yeah, I'll like reiterate this again. It's a confusing topic, guys, because we were told from the GCSAA beginning of the week, pure POA surfaces. That's what they put on the report. And at least for me, they're an accurate 99.99% of the time. So when that guy told me last night that he thought they might not be POA surfaces, that took me off guard, right? Because the GCSAA, very solid about what they do. So I did a little bit more research today, and everything I'm seeing is saying POA surfaces. So the fact that this is a high-end country club, like the country club at Brookline is, it could be POA. They would just have to spend a lot of money and a lot of time upkeeping them. So I think that's why the guy was mentioning that. He's a superintendent up in New England that actually brought that up to my attention. But he's more than likely a superintendent at a golf course with a lower budget, right? Where they can't go out there and spend the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars needed to upkeep POA greens in the Northeast, because that's not a natural grass type. Pure bent grass is, and while POA is a type of bent grass, it's got its own niches, its own needs, like any other plant out there. So yeah, for everything I know, they're POA. They are pure POA surfaces, but if there is going to be some bent grass influence, we'll call it, I am including that in my modeling. So I'm looking at POA stats. That's what I kind of mentioned towards the beginning, but also bent/POA stats, that hybrid surface, which we saw for the Florida swing and then 4 to 5 events after the Florida swing. So if you're looking to pick up those putting stats for yourself, use them in your own modeling, take a look at the Florida swing, take a look at those 4 to 5 events afterwards, a few of them that were in Texas, and you can get that sort of data for yourself. You have Chris who says favorite cash play, $7,200 and below. Favorite cash play? There's not really that many cash plays I like below $7,200, to be quite honest with you. The talent level drops off quickly. If I had to go directly at $7,200, I mean, Patrick Reed makes sense. I like the fact that he's got the approach play of late, the around the green play to keep it together. Perhaps Gary Woodland at $7,100. Those would be my top 2 guys, but they're not my favorite. This week in cash, I'm trying to be as balanced as humanly possible. I'm trying to avoid that 6K range at all costs. And frankly, even the bottom of the 7K range, I'm trying to avoid in cash contests. Justin says, will you just answer that? There you go. Antonio says, what do you think about KH Lee? Are you on and off him? I think he's the new version of Matt Every. And don't take this as too much an offense, KH Lee, if you're watching this. Matt Every, right, won API twice. He's done nothing else. KH Lee doesn't show up all that often on the PGA Tour, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's the new Matt Every. You got CBO who's down there in chat. What is going on? Hopefully you're doing well. Mamba is asking about Tyler Montgomery. I don't hate him this week. I'm not going to have him in my poll. He's one of the few guys down low I have as a blank down in the bottom of that 6K range. I prefer guys like Brandon Matthews a little bit more. That's a little bit more stout off the tee than Tyler Montgomery or Taylor, whatever the heck his name is. Either way, yeah, I'd rather go to Brandon Matthews' direction. Antonio says, do you ever make or miss the cut parlay? I don't usually do so, just because in South Florida, a little bit harder to get access to some of these sports books. But they're interesting, and particularly at major championships where you can bet against some of the top guys at a U.S. Open, but not something that I do personally. Anthony says Rory and X are going to jockey for first round leader, but Henley and Young are going to tie for it. Yeah, that would just be, Cameron Young just perpetually in the first round leader race. Just every time goes out there, shoots something like 4 to 5 under par. That wouldn't surprise me at all, to be honest with you, Anthony. I could very well see him being first round leader. David says Mito or Riley. I'm going to go Riley there. I really like Davis Riley this week. Robert says it was a very sad cashing out my outright on Spieth just now. I agree, man. It's he would have been such a good pick this week. He had everything going for him. Brookline's the perfect major championship venue for Spieth. Yeah, dude, it's sad. I agree. We got a Planet says any Schwartzel love. I'm not a huge on Schwartzel this week. So he's probably not going to be in my pool. Jack says, do you ever do free ball plays? I do, yeah. So if you, I do have a betting live stream up on my channel. The replay should be up there as well. I go through pretty much all the free ball groups and who I would take in all of them. That's actually where a majority of my units go when it comes to outright bets. It goes with tournament matchups, free balls, first round leaders. I bet a lot of that prop stuff over the outright stuff. It's just higher ROI, and particularly with those three balls, there's a lot of opportunity if you shop your lines. I'm sure you know that, Jack, but yeah, I do that, and that's on that live stream. Talk about it a lot. Nick says, how do you feel about Olesen? Yeah, I'm not there. If you guys know the story about Bjorn Olesen, he's a wild guy, that's for sure. And CBO says Schwartzel is suspended. Yeah, he's suspended from PGA Tour events, not for these events, though. So he'll be playing this week, I'm pretty sure. Antonio says, if Spieth can't play, does Fowler get that spot? He does. Yeah, so he's the next alternate. He won't be in the player pool. So, yeah, won't be playing him. He won't be a late add in time. Anybody that's added to the pool within 24 hours of lock does not make it into the Draftkings pool. So unfortunately, if he does withdraw, we won't have Ricky to play for, but I will be rooting for him. He's my guy. I love myself some Ricky. And Planet Warrior says Stallings a local guy. He is a local guy. He's a New England guy. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to buy into that, right? I'm not sure if he's even played the country club before. It's a private establishment. It's not really something you can just go and play at. I mean, he's a pro, right? I'm sure he could get a tee time there if he wanted to. I'm not sure if I'm going to get there myself, but I understand it. And Justin says, wait, I thought Spieth was still planning on playing. He is, but he's not really a confident play anymore, right? He's dealing with a stomach bug. He's not hospitalized or anything, but I'm going to have like at most 7% this week. He was somebody I had 40% of before, somebody I have an outright bet on still. So obviously I was a lot higher on him than I am right now. That's really cooled off because of that stomach stuff. Let's go ahead and finish off the 7K range here. Then we'll talk about some of my favorite 6K options. And let's talk about my boy, Lodewickus, who, if you still don't know who Lodewickus is, just look at the pricing. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Lodewickus Theodorus. He is a great sleeper pick this week. He is 40-1 to win this event. Everybody else around here is like 100-1 plus to win this event. What do the sports books know about Mr. Lodewickus that we don't know? That's the $1 million question at hand here. And anytime that happens, I play the guy in DFS because time and time again, that guy ends up finishing in the top 10, top 5. He obviously models well here. Lodewickus is Louis Oosthuizen for anybody that's not enlightened yet. And he's an extremely accurate driver of the golf ball and one of the best iron players that we have in the world, particularly when he's playing solid golf. Louis last year was a top 5 machine at major championships. And this year, even though he hasn't been quite his normal self, I mean, if he turns it around in a hurry and he's just 5% owned, I'm going to have plenty of Lodewickus in my player pool. Again, he's 40-1 at a few sports books to win this event. What do they know that we don't, right? So I think there's something to look into there. I am fading Bryson. The wrist injury is clearly hurting him. Corey Connors, great course fit here. One of the pieces of chalk in this range that I'm certainly getting to. Aaron Wise, I worry about the around green play. I worry about the putting too. So if I was going to take a ball striker, I'd much rather have Corey Connors than Aaron Wise because the putting has been a lot more consistent for Corey Connors of late. And the ball striking stats almost identical between the two players. Tommy Fleetwood, love him with the Shinnecock comp there. Mito Pereira has been in a great stretch of golf. And I think 14-15% is maybe even a little bit low for Mito. Could be higher owned than that. So players that I love there. I will have a little bit of Sunjay M, but not. I don't even know what I should say this. I don't know what I'm 100% doing with Sunjay. As of right now, I have 10% in my player pool. It's like almost like a just in case type of ownership because he's going to be 20% right here. So I have half. You see, like he's an ownership fade for me. That might become 0. The only reason I have 10% is because I talked him up this week. I loved the pick. And if he goes out there and wins, right, and I don't have him in my player pool, it's going to be like the biggest case of FOMO in human history, right? But the 20% ownership number on him is ridiculous. He's like twice as owned as everybody else in this range. And Sungjae Im isn't 30-40% likely to be in the optimal lineup. It's close to like maybe 15 to 20%, which is solid for this range. That's why he's 20% owned. But if you're going to have to play 40% of Sungjae in lineups to get leverage, I mean, that's a tough ask for me. It's a really tough ask. So kind of like Spieth, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to end up doing with Sungjae Im. But as of right now, he's not going to be a high owned play for me. Likely less than the field, if any ownership. Keegan Bradley, I do like his ball striking prowess. I like the fact that he's been putting it of late. So if we take a look at these stats here, you'll see that Keegan Bradley gaining with the flat stick over a third of a stroke per round. He likes himself that bent POA hybrid surface. He won on it at the Valspar, played well at the Valspar Championship this year, had the top 5 finish at the Players Championship on that same type of surface. So if you think that it plays similar to those golf courses, then you want to be a buyer on Keegan Bradley. So I like him there. Taylor Gooch, too. He's a live guy that I think might be a little bit lower owned than he should be. Harris English is not meant to be. Yes, that is fake news. He's certainly not in my player pool. That is fake news, as fake can be. Harris English is like coming off of hip surgery. I don't think you want to be playing Harris English, at least until he shows a little bit of form. Sebastian Munoz, I don't hate the play, but I love Webb Simpson, love the accuracy off the tee. And one thing you'll see here, guys, is I'm playing a lot of this range. There's a lot of yeses down here in the 7K range. It's because I can afford to. I'm fading a lot of this chalk up top, right? So I can eat a lot of the chalk here in the 7K range, which I think you need to, because when we get to the 6K range here in a few minutes, you'll see that it's sparse at best. Not very many guys to choose from. So I like Davis Riley, even though he's relatively high owned. HV3, I liked him at $9,700 last week. I'm certainly going to like him at $7,300 after a solid performance. Like myself, some Russell Henley, accurate off the tee, solid approach player. Togi, another solid iron player. Same thing with Adam Scott. I love the bottom of the 7K range here, particularly like this $7,300 to $7,400 range. There's a reason why I like pretty much all of them. And even the guys I don't have in my pool, right, they're down as blanks, like in English, like a Sebastian Munoz, like a Sergio Garcia, for example, because I could see myself getting to them too. I just can't play everybody at this range for obvious reasons. Mark Leishman, Kokrak, particularly Leishman's ability out of long rough. I like that with his shots gained approach. Patrick Reed, very solid around the green, player worth taking a few looks at. EVR, he's pretty dog shit at difficult conditions. I just have to say that with EVR. Just think about the PGA Championship where he smashed the tee marker out of frustration. But if he can go out there and start hot, maybe he can stay engaged. So I think he's a really high upside play. Just 1.5% owned. So trivial ownership there. Like myself, some Gary Woodland. That's for sure. He's a major championship winner. Won at Pebble Beach, which is one of the comp courses I'm using at the U.S. Open. We have Alex Noren, potentially worth a few looks. He's always good when conditions get tough. Same thing with Brian Harmon. Kevin Na is gaining a shit ton of strokes with his approach play. Just to give you an idea of how many, I mean, it's like 1.36 shots gained approach per round. That's always going to get my attention. So I like him there. Luke List, another solid ball striker, kind of similar to a few of the other guys up here, like a Hoagie. You know, if you wanted to get to an Adam Scott, HV3, guys that are gaining a ton of strokes with their approach play. Makes sense for that reason. Patrick Rogers, I like the putting splits. So he'll be in the pool. Siwoo Kim, a value pick. I still love him. Makes a bunch of sense for me. Thomas Peters, a bomber. So if you're going to take a chance on one of these European Tour players that doesn't have all that much experience over here, but Thomas Peters has shown up at majors in the past. He's shown up at the API in the past at difficult tracks. So I like him there at 3%. Adam Hadwin, he's only 1.7% owned, which is pretty beautiful if you ask me. Hopefully that holds up. That'd be a pretty nice ownership number to get on him. Let's catch up on questions before we move on. 1 second here. You got thoughts on Adam Scott? Yeah, I love him this week. Just in Aussie, I like the fact that he'll be able to get up and down. And the recent form, it hasn't been immaculate for Adam Scott, but it's been good enough. So let's go ahead and show you what I'm looking at here. So Adam Scott, you can see he's gaining on approach. He's gaining off the tee. Neutral with the flat stick, but he likes himself some POA. In fact, let's see. What are his splits on POA? Yeah, right around half a stroke better per round on POA than any other surface. So yeah, certainly like myself, some Adam Scott there. We have Wilson Douglas' thoughts on Richard Mansell. Well, I will not be there. I, honest to God, don't even know who Richard Mansell is. I'm sure he's one of these amateurs that's been extremely impressive. I mean, if you look into any of the guys in the field, guys, especially some of these young up and coming amateurs, they're going to look like solid players because of all these awards they've won, all these tours and recognitions that they've gone, and so on and so forth. It's hard to tell who's actually good, though, because not all of them are actually going to be good players, right? So it's, do we go to a William Mao? Do we go to somebody like a Richard Mansell? Do we go to Chris Gotterup in this field, right? It's just a toss up, man. So I can't make a case for any of these players that we've never seen before, that we have no knowledge on. We don't even know, if he's long off the tee or if he's somebody who's a really solid approach player. And Miami might be able to get some data on that. We don't know if that's going to translate to the PGA Tour, right? Because this isn't a golf course. I mean, this isn't a golf course you can fake it around. It's one of the more difficult tracks we're going to see all year. So I'm not really taking chances on those sort of guys unless I know a lot about them, unless there's somebody that I have some prior knowledge of. I don't know anything about him, so I can't really talk about his game. Antonio says, what are your thoughts on Kitayama? Love him. Love his accuracy off the tee, his approach play too. He'll be in the pool. We got, looks like I skipped. By the way, if you ask a question, you don't have to ask multiple times, okay? I will get to them, I promise you. Josh says, Fleetwood or Power GBP? Fleetwood for me. Love his upside. Jack says, Todd and Kirk both played well last week. Top 10 potential. Ooh, I don't know about Brendan Todd finishing top 10 at a major. Maybe Chris Kirk, but I'd take them top 20. Just be a little bit safer about it. You're still going to get some pretty solid value on both those plays. Steven says, Golf Data just ranked Denny McCarthy 34th and Cam Young 35th. Perfect. Yeah, what do I have him ranked at? So Denny McCarthy, I don't even have ranked actually because he was a late add to the field. If Cameron Young 20th, I don't know. I think they're much better than that. I think Cameron Young's a top 20 play. I don't think he's number 35 in the field. I mean, based on the recent form, right? I mean, he's been striping it of late. So I don't know. I'm going to disagree there with Data Golf, to be quite honest with you. Gaining close to a stroke per round off the tee sounds pretty nice to me. Being almost a gainer across all four categories seems pretty nice to me. So I'll have to agree to disagree there with Golf Data. That's for sure. You got a Horsfield down there. I really like Horsfield. Accurate off the tee, high upside player, top 100 player in the official World Golf rankings. So that speaks a lot of volumes for him. If Steven says Montgomery was spotted playing his ass off yesterday, I mean, dude, it's a practice round though. All the pins are in the center of greens. Not sure how much stock we can put into a practice round performance. So not going to be something that I'm taking seriously. Anyone can play well at practice rounds. I've seen it in person. I've been down at the Honda Classic. Guys like a Louis Oosthuizen who shoot like -8 in the first round in the practice round, go out the next day and shoot like +4, I believe what it was at the Honda Classic this year. So I don't know if you want to look into that too much, these practice round reports. David says Woodland or Bradley. It's going to be Bradley for me. That's a close one. Both fairly solid plays this week. FanDuel has Rory -130 over Thomas +102 in head-to-heads. What are my thoughts on that? Ooh, I don't like either play this week, but I'd take the plus money for sure. Mansell says, is he DP World Tour guy? Is he, though? I thought he was like a China Tour guy. I'm looking this up now because this is somebody who I've never heard of. He's a European Tour. He has 0 wins. Let's see how many starts he has in the European Tour because that would make a lot more sense. He has 5 starts on the European Tour, or those are his last 5 starts. Maybe that's fake news. Let's see. He's 282nd in the world. That's not that bad. I'll give that to him. He's played, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's played 10 total professional events, and he's won about $200,000 in prize money. So I don't want to, talk too much crap about the guy, right? But his best finish this year was a 3rd place at the Porsche European Open. He only made $98,000 for doing that on the DP World Tour. So yeah, he's still an unknown guy to me, man. He's, if I haven't heard of him, and again, I don't know everyone in the golf world. If I haven't heard of him and I'm looking at the golf world every single day, he's pretty much an unknown guy. Jeff Yang says, what's the best place to check if somebody withdraws just before the tournament starts? PGA Tour comms. So if you look up PGA Tour comms Twitter, they will tweet every withdrawal as they happen. They don't always tweet them before lock though, right? So if somebody withdraws after lock, sometimes you're just crap out of luck, but that's the place to look for sure. That's where you see all of them. Cloudsy loves Lowry this week, definitely for sure. Kevin Na as well, definitely agree. And you said you're playing young. I agree. Like sometimes Data Golf, by the way, probably the best resource out there. I mean, they have so many tools on their website that I use a lot of the times to make a lot of my projections, right? Sometimes they get things wrong, right? And I think one of them that me and you agree on there, Steven, is with Cameron Young. That's for sure. AJ Hope, top $10,000 play. Let's see what we got. It's gonna be John Rahm, but number 2 would be Scotty Scheffler. I like both those plays. David says hit the like button. Could not agree more, guys. We've got 63 people in here right now. Make sure you go ahead and smash that like button. It goes a long way with helping me grow the channel and helps show support here, right? So make sure you go ahead and do that. And Wilson says, how about Mansell? Dude, so bro, like I said, you only need to ask one time, okay, bro? That's your last warning about that, Wilson. You asked 3 times, bro. Let's chill with asking questions multiple times. We'll get around to them, all right? Promise you. Josh Gilliam says best value play besides Sanjay. Let's see. So, I mean, technically, I have Tommy Fleetwood as a value play, right? He's only $100 more than Tommy Fleetwood. So I'd have to, other way around. He's only $100 more expensive than Sanjay M. But next up would be Webb Simpson. I like all 3 of those value picks quite a bit this week. Jeff Yang says, any love for Bo Hostler? Yes, we'll get to that down there. Steven says, wow, piss poor money for third. Yeah, right. And that's, $100,000 for third place. You'd expect that to be like $500K, right? Even for a European Tour event. So I'm assuming that was a small event, the one he finished at the top 3. I guess that's why I pointed that out with the purse there. It's not to talk shit. $100,000 is a lot more than I made that weekend. That's for damn sure. But still, yeah, it should have been a pretty small event. And Tony says, ban Wilson. No, I'm gonna give him a chance. If he's just got to get his act together. I'm not gonna be ban happy today. I'm in a good mood today. We don't got to be banning people. And he must have the hots for Mansell. Maybe it is Mansell. Maybe Wilson Dog is Mansell. He's trying to get us to play him because he's gonna go off this week. Maybe he's doing us a solid. I don't know, man. Maybe he is. Jeff Yang says Keegan Bradley or Taylor Gooch. It's going to be Keegan Bradley for me. Reed Johnson says, do I like Joel Damon? I do like Joel Damon. So let's just get into the 6K range, right? I see a lot of the questions are about these 6K guys. I do like him. He's at $6,600. He's a value pick for me. I like the fact that he's volatile, right? So if he's going to make the cut, Joel Damon actually has a chance of getting into contention. So yeah, I'll be there myself. That's for sure. Planet Warrior says thoughts on Neesmith and Perez. Are you talking about Victor Perez? If so, I love myself some Victor Perez. But Neesmith, I like him too. Do I have Neesmith in my pool as of right now? I do. Yeah. So that answers your question there. I like both of them. Sam Ergel says, I'm liking Arnos as a GPP play. I completely agree. The one thing Arnos does well is he hits the hell out of the driver. So I will be there myself. He's going to be super low owned as well. Gary Kerr says, Mansell is in the optimal lineup 0% of the time. More than likely. And Wilson, they're only ragging on you, bro, because the only reason you're mentioning him is because Pat Mayo brought him up the other day, right? So I think that's why people are ragging on you, bro. And Steven says, which Wyndham Clark shows up? Probably the dog shit Wyndham Clark. We took a chance on him last week. I took him in 8% of my lineups, and it was a pure dart throw. I think even on this live stream, I told you guys, I like Wyndham Clark. He goes off every once in a while. I'll probably missed the cut, but went off last week, had that solid performance. I'm not going to be on him again, right? I'm not going to test my luck 2 weeks in a row. I mean, he's a dog. Let's just look at the recent form, guys. I hate to rag on a guy, right? But it's true. He's got a dog shit. Look at this. 7th place. Great. Pretty solid. 7th. Missed cut. Hardly made the cut. 10th. Pretty solid, right? He shows up every once in a while, but then 35th. Like he's either going to go out there and be in contention or completely be irrelevant. That's Wyndham Clark's game. So I'm not going to be there this week. That's for sure. Let's talk about these 6K guys. So I like Arnauts a whole lot. I mean, look at the country club fit. He's number 18 in the field in terms of model ranking. So gotta love to see that. I love myself some Herbert around the green. The guy's got the magic beans like a Jordan Spieth out there. So I like him at super low owned, just 2.6%. Mackenzie Hughes, time and time again, shows up at major championships. So perhaps there's something to be had there at 6,800. Victor Perez, I know we just talked about him. Great player on the European Tour in terms of actual official World Golf ranking, much better than his peers in this range. So if you're going just based on pedigree alone, that's going to point you to guys like a Victor Perez. And just to, kind of holistically talk about the 6K range, guys, I'm taking shots on guys that are established players, people that we know are actually like pro-level golfers. Not to, rag on this whole Richard Mansell thing, but I've literally never heard of the guy's name before other than like 2 days ago, right? And if you're going to be like trying to trust guys like that over guys like Victor Perez, who we know is an established solid tour player, I think you're doing yourself a disservice, right? You're just taking a guess, hoping that a guy's better than we expect him to be. But this is an event where you can qualify yourself. Like, you watching this right now could qualify for the US Open. Go to a qualifier and qualify for this event. There are guys in this field that this is the only pro tour event they'll ever play on tour. Richard Mansell, this might be the only tournament he ever plays on the PGA Tour. That's a legitimate possibility for those type of players. Whereas Victor Perez is playing all the major championships, right? All of them that he qualifies for, which I believe is at least 3 or 4 this year. I'd much rather go that direction. Or even a guy like a Brandon Matthews, for example, down here at the bottom of the board, who is on the Korn Ferry Tour and is going to be a PGA Tour member next year. We know he's a tour level player because he's already earned his tour card, right? I would much rather take chances on these type of players. Or Nick Hardy, for example, same exact story. We know he's going to be a tour player next year, right? He's earned his tour card before. Those are the type of players I'm willing to take those shots on. Even a Minwoo Lee. Minwoo Lee is a top 75 player in the official World Golf Rankings. Sure, he's been absolute dog shit of late, but I would much rather play a Minwoo Lee than, frankly, anybody else in this range, than all of these players. They're all complete unknowns, or they're old geezers that have no business actually being in this event. Or even a Beau Hossler, right? Beau Hossler is $6,400. That's a pretty damn solid price tag for Beau Hossler, especially given that he's pretty solid on that Bent Poa mix. Let's see, a few other guys I have down as a yes. Brandon Matthews we talked about. Nick Hardy we talked about. Towards the middle of the 6K range, we have guys like a Sam Horsfield, Joel Damon I mentioned before that I really like. Grayson Murray, he's been striking the ball of late. Ever since he got cleaned up, he was dealing with substance abuse issues for quite a bit there. Ever since he's cleaned that up, he's been a much better player. So I think there's something to be said for that. People, when they get their lives together, a lot of times they improve in other areas as well. So maybe there's something to be said for Grayson. He's clearly turned a corner with his ball striking. Denny McCarthy, solid play this week. Data Golf had him at like number 35 in the rankings this week. He's number 87 in pricing, right? So seems like pretty good value to me if you're looking at that Data Golf stuff. Stuart Sink has been striping the ball over his last 24 rounds. So if we take a look at that, let's bring it up. Gaining over a third of a stroke per round on approach, gaining off the tee, and even gaining with the putter, right? So if you're just looking at these last 5-6 starts on the PGA Tour, it's going to point you to a lot of Stuart Sink. So I'm going to have some ownership there. Ryan Fox, I like the fact that he's long off the tee. I mean, even guys like Kurt Kitayama, right? He's $6,700. We know he's got the off the tee play we're looking for, relatively accurate, played well at the Honda Classic. Approach play, always going to be pretty solid for Kitayama. In fact, let's look at the long-term sample size. Let's not even look at the last 24 rounds that are pretty solid for him. Getting significantly on approach, gaining off the tee, just has to find a little bit of a putter, right? Has to go out there, be neutral with the flat stick, which happens from time to time. And when it does, he puts up a solid performance. Just look at his recent track record, right? It's a little bit all over the place, but second at the Mexico Open, top 15 at the Wells Fargo, right? A few made cuts, but a few missed cuts mixed in there too. So he's volatile, but he's got the upside that we're looking for in this range. We'll catch up on chat now, guys. Let's see what we got. Ooh, a lot of comments down there. We got Jeff, who's saying to smash the leg button. That's for sure. Thank you again there. And what do you think about Justin Rose? So I'm personally not going to be on the Rose train. I think he's a little bit too highly owned for me. A lot of that due to the pricing. So the pricing came out before he had that Sunday 60. Where he went out there, made like whatever it was, like 13 birdies. So he's relatively high owned. So you can see I'm at 10.5% right here. So somebody that I'm avoiding just due to ownership considerations. But I don't hate the play. I mean, he's shown up at major championships in the past. So if you're going down that route, if that's the reason why you're playing him is more for his major championship pedigree, then that Sunday performance, then by all means go for it. But if the only reason you want to play him is because of what you saw on Sunday, I would tread a little bit carefully with that, because that's why he's going to be 10% owned. So just if you like the play, go for it. Right? I'm not going to be there myself though. Steven says top 60 is a MFer. Yeah, that's for sure. Chris Palmer says Malnati over Clark last week killed you in cash. Oh yeah, you took Malnati over Clark. Yeah, I mean, well, you don't want to take Clark in cash, to be quite honest with you. I mean, Wyndham Clark is like the opposite of a cash play, right? So I don't know if you'd want to hold that against yourself, because I don't know if you'd really want to be considering Clark in cash to begin with, just because of how volatile he is, right? You know, he's either going to go out there, finish top 10 or miss the cut most times. Whereas in cash, you're looking for like that top 25 finish as a floor. Yeah, I wouldn't hold that against you too much, but Peter Malnati is a little bit of a crazy man himself. Another play you probably don't want to take in cash just because of his volatility. Planet Warrior says any Italiano Guido based on performance last year. Boy, yeah, he looked good at the Masters too. You guys remember Guido? He showed up at the U.S. Open. I believe that was his first performance in front of American crowds, and then went out there the week after, or just a few weeks after, because it was a little bit of a different schedule that year, and played well at the Masters. But this year, I mean, it's been really bad. Let's take a look at the shots gained metrics. So these are from the European Tour, and then a few of the PGA Tour starts that he's had. Where's he at? He was priced 6,600. I have a feeling the stats are really bad for him. That's the only issue I'm going to have with him this week. Yeah, he's losing 2 strokes off the tee and a stroke on approach. Yeah, I can't do it. When he's played over here, he's looked really bad since then. So I like what we saw last year, but I'm not sure if I can back it up once again. Jeff says, how do you get your ownership projections? So I calculate them. I have an algorithm that I run. It's based a lot on like my projections, right? So how I based on how I actually project players, their projected points and whatnot. It's going to help me with determining ownership. I take a look across the industry, get an idea of what other people have them at. I take a look at how much players are touted. So there's a website out there. It's called it's on the website. It's called like PGA Tout Tracker. It shows you how many times like people have actually talked about each player, and it give you like a score. It'll say like this player's been touted like 212 times this week, so on and so forth. I'll use that type of data to boost up guys in the rankings, right? So if somebody's been talked up like 100 plus times in any given week, I'm obviously going to put his projected ownership a lot higher than somebody that hasn't been talked up at all, because a lot of the ownership is based on content, right? People watch live streams like this. They watch videos like the ones that I put up, and it helps them make decisions with their player pool. So it's a very complicated process. It's one of the more complicated algorithms that I have as of right now, but it's not just like one simple answer. It's a long, complicated process. CBO says your comment hid from me. Sorry about that. There's so many opportunities to front load on your lineup. The big thing is taking a shot on spot 6 of your lineup. Completely agreed, bro. It's hard to take that shot down low. Like you got to take a Brandon Matthews, at like $6,100. You got to go to a Denny McCarthy, who's not the most confident play this week, but it opens up a ton up top. So I agree with you, dude. A lot of people are going to play very balanced this week. They're not going to play a lot of these 6K guys. And if you just want to differentiate yourself based on one player alone, take somebody that's $6,500 or cheaper. It's going to be a pretty simple way to go out and do so. Steven says, Wilson, don't pay the rake, fade that Mayo dog. No comment. I plead the fifth. Antonio Esparza says, thoughts on Migliozzi? He finished T4 in last year's Open. Yeah, so I just answered that. He's played really badly since then, so I can't be on that. Before the U.S. Open, he was playing solidly on the European Tour. I believe he had a few top 5 finishes on his record. Ever since then, he's kind of fallen off a cliff. So not somebody I'm going to have. You have CBO who says, I'm going to try out for the U.S. Open road trip. Hey, we can go out to the same qualifier if you want. Go and play around. 0 shot we're going to qualify, but it'd be a hell of an experience. Steven says Guido shot his WOD last year. He spent, yeah, I agree. He's been really bad on the European Tour since, which is concerning for me. And he says, LOL, I'm amazed that Cam Young and Cam Smith are getting no love and at that ownership. Remember what Cam Young did last week following the bad play at the Masters? Yeah, Cam Young for sure. He's a volatile player. He'll have bad performances, then back it up with a solid performance. So I'm with you on Cam Young. Cam Smith, I'm not so much sure about. I worry about the off the tee play with him. So I definitely think he'll be low owned. If you're getting to Cam Smith, you are going to have a lot of leverage. That's for sure. Gary says Guido is having a gender identity issues right now, so don't play him. What the heck? Oh my gosh. I shouldn't have read that comment. David Ferris says thoughts on Hideki. I like him. He's got a good skill set fit here. I just worry a little bit about his back. He had that injury. It was like only a month ago at this point where he was withdrawing from events. That worries me a little bit. I also like Will Zalatoris a little bit more. So he's not going to be in my player pool, but I don't hate it. Steven says, I heard Hideki was using Gorilla Tape this week. Yeah, anything but the whiteout he was using on his driver last time. That was I had 25% Hideki that week, guys. That was not good. That was a no bueno, as they say. Chris Palmer says, I guess I'm locking my cash lineup as Lowry, Fitzpatrick, Burns, Finau, Homa, and Mansell. Just kidding. Connor's last guy in. Hey, why? I love it. I love it, Chris. That's great. I'm on Mansell top 140. Guys, stop. You guys stop it. You guys are cyberbullying him. This isn't fun. Stop it. AJ Hope says 2 sleepers in the 7K range. All right, let's talk about a few of these sleepers. So low owned, we're gonna go with sub 3% as a sleeper. So let's see who's sub 3% that I'm playing. Got some EVR. He's a solid sleeper pick. Tom Hoagie is gonna be super low owned. Let's see, and that's probably about it. I guess Lodewickus Theodorus could be another quote unquote sleeper pick towards the top of the 7K range that you could get to. Or maybe even Terrell Hatton. I know he's $8,000, right? But he's the top of that 7K range per se. Those would be the quote unquote sleeper picks that I'd be getting to. Steven says, "Is all the wives AJ?" I don't understand the McCarthy price. Why isn't he okay off the tee? He's accurate off the tee. He's not long off the tee though, right? So when he's missing fairways this week, he's going to be in a world of trouble. He does not have the power necessary to get out of that 4-inch rough. But if he's hitting fairways, which is something that he does, he's a relatively accurate driver, I could see it. So yeah, that's why I have him in my pool. He's 3.8% owned. So he's going to get a little bit of ownership this week, but I think it's well warranted. Planet says, any chance Hideki is pissed over the DQ and comes out firing? That's certainly a possibility. I don't want to say that there's no chance that's the case, but he wasn't playing very well at that event, and he wasn't playing well the week before that. So his form's just a little bit off for me, but that is definitely in the possibility, right? I would imagine he's pretty pissed off about having that DQ. Steven says Cam Smith cut 1/2 inch off his driver, and he kept the weight. Says he's hitting the driver much better. For his case, hopefully that'd be good for him. But I worry about his driving accuracy. I mean, when he's striping it, he hits a lot of fairways, but more often than not, he's having a lot of trouble with that accuracy. Penny Warrior says Chase Koepka or Mansell. Mansell, because he's actually playing this week. CVO says, who are you liking for first round leader tomorrow? Let's go John Rahm. I took him at the top of the board. A few other the long shots that I was considering, just to give you an idea. RJ Arnaus, I bet for first round leader. Let's see. I can't remember them off the top of my head. I bet them 2 days ago. It's not good. I'll get back to you. I'll send them to you in the Discord, bro. I'll look at my card when we get off of here, and I'll send them in the Discord, give you my actual card there. Catch Me McCann says, I thought Janny Mansell was a QB. When did he switch to golf? Yeah, that's for sure. And CBO says, Luke, your boy Chase Koepka in the tourney. What do you got to say to him this year? I don't think he's playing this year. Yeah, I don't think he's at the U.S. Open. I don't think he's that type of player. And we got Josh Gilliam says, Kevin Na, 7K. Yeah, I like myself some Kevin Na too. So I guess you could consider him a sleeper, right? He's a 2.9% owned. So that's right under the 3% threshold that we gave. And oh boy, these the approach stats for Kevin Na are just sexy stuff. 1.36 shots gained approach per round. Like, are you kidding me? Like that's elite level stuff. So hey, if he continues that, Josh, I'm definitely with you on the Kevin Na train. He's a hell of a play this week. So let's go ahead and end the live chat there, guys. If you guys have any questions and you're watching this on replay, feel free to go ahead and comment them down below. I'll try and get back to you as soon as humanly possible, but we've got a big week ahead. It's the US Open week. I've got a lot of lineups to make myself, so got to get out of here to get that done. But as per usual, we'll have a few prize picks videos dropping throughout the weekend and showdown live streams. Last week, I felt like complete dog shit with a stomach bug. I guess probably the same thing that Jordan Spieth is dealing with right now, and was out of commission, right? Wasn't in the driver's seat there. But this week, we're going to have you guys for showdown content, I promise you. So looking forward to that. Make sure you smash the like button on this live stream if you guys haven't already before you hop on out of here. And also make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you haven't already done that, so you don't miss any of the content when it drops in the future. Best of luck to everybody out there. David got a future bet on Cam Smith for the British Open at 50-1. I love that. That is a great bet. I don't know when you placed that, maybe like a few weeks ago, something like that. Great bet. That's a great line to take there. But best of luck, everybody. Let's get some cash this week. And hey, maybe one of us is $1 million richer this week. That wouldn't be a terrible thing at all.